Hello and welcome to DFS Coach Talk. It's Wednesday, December 8th, 2021. I'm Andrew Hansen alongside Omaha Joe Stanton. We've got the Thursday night game here, Pittsburgh and Minnesota. How about that thumbnail you created, Omaha Joe? KJ Osborne, he is your guy. You're the touchdown whisperer with KJ Osborne. I'm surprised you don't have his jersey on tonight for the show.
I need it, right? Yeah, I called his first touchdown in week 3. Hopefully on the thumbnail, folks aren't just scrolling by and being like, who's that guy? I don't know who that is. So, KJ Osborne stepping up with Adam Thielen out. Had to put him on the thumbnail for that reason.
Definitely. He's becoming more expensive, more involved with Thielen out. And I'm also surprised here, speaking of jerseys, that you don't have the Javonte Williams jersey on either. I know you're in your new dig, so you're on the move here. It's understandable, but man, how about that Sunday night performance from your boy?
Yeah, if I had to get the next Denver Broncos jersey or whatever my next jersey will be, it would be Javonte Williams because, he's up there for like the most missed tackles among with Jonathan Taylor. He just had a stellar performance. Melvin Gordon is on a contract year, so I fully expect Javonte Williams to just be. He looked like a stud. I don't want to knock on wood, right? But he looked good and he helped us take down some winners in our Sunday Night Football lineup. So that was even better, right?
Yeah, he was a beast. Yeah, we had him as the MVP on FanDuel. That worked out well with all those touches. We've had a lot of success here with these single games. So let's keep it rolling here on this Thursday night. Big battle here, a lot on the line with these teams on the fringes of the playoffs in Pittsburgh and Minnesota. Minnesota at home here, favored by 3, over under 43.5. Why don't you start things off for us on the Pittsburgh side?
Yeah, absolutely. So obviously Pittsburgh's coming off a really tight win against the Baltimore Ravens. It came down to the last play, scored a touchdown there in the fourth quarter. So yeah, they're coming off a big win against the Ravens, but they're not in the playoff picture yet. They're still battling, much like the Vikings, which is why this is going to be a quite intense, lot on the line Thursday night football game. Starting at the helm, you got Ben Roethlisberger, not the man that he once was. I think that shoulder's breaking down for him. He's only thrown over 300 yards once this season, and it was 305. It really wasn't. It wasn't a lot. Against Baltimore last week, he threw for 236 yards and 2 touchdowns, Andrew. So Ben Roethlisberger has not been the QB that we imagined. However, the Vikings defense has been plagued with injuries, and they rank 24th in pass defense, and they're allowing 1.8 pass touchdowns per game. So it's a great matchup for the Steelers. Unfortunately, the Steelers ranked 22nd in scoring and 17th overall in offense. So I'm not super bullish on Ben Roethlisberger, although I like the matchup. I'm just not confident. A lot of their offense runs to Najee Harris now with their run game. And even in the passing game, it's a lot of those short passes. Plus, the Vikings are getting some really key guys back on defense. Eric Kendricks, Anthony Barr, Patrick Peterson, all didn't play against the Lions, but are expected to be out there for this Thursday night football game. So, yeah, it stinks because I'll get to the rest of the Steelers guys, and I do like the other pieces of the Steelers offense. And you would normally like to get those paired up with the QB, but I'm just not super high on Ben Roethlisberger this week, Andrew.
Yeah, I can understand why you're not. It's like he's struggling to the finish line of a marathon, his career marathon. And it's not always pretty, with the throws, with the stats. But we do have a couple moving parts here. The surprising thing about last week, when you mentioned the 236 yards, is that in that second half, they were throwing it nonstop. And so that's the thing, is they're throwing it that much, trying to catch up, and he only ends up with those numbers. You can't have a lot of faith in a big day from Big Ben, because we do know that Pittsburgh loves to run it. They love to hand it to Najee Harris. But, he's been struggling. The offensive line's been struggling. Do they change strategy here and throw it more? I wouldn't be surprised if they do. But then on the flip side, like you said, Minnesota is going to be a different defense this week than last. When they lost to the Lions, allowed them to get their first win, but they were missing those key defenders that you just mentioned. So kind of some moving parts here.
Yeah.
But I'm with you in that, because of the way the Pittsburgh offense runs and Big Ben's limitations, you can get exposure to those pass catchers and possibly Najee Harris and fade Big Ben and still make it work.
Right. Yep. And speaking of Najee Harris, like you said, he's only had one touchdown in the last 3 games. He's came out the gate absolutely firing. But even against the Ravens last week, he had 26 total touches. He had 21 carries on the ground and 5 catches in the air. So very much the high volume rookie receiver that, we expected him to be, and he has become. And he was just up against a tough Ravens defense, where this week the Vikings ranked 29th in their run defense. They allow 131.5 rushing yards per game. And Benny Snell is not taking rushing attempts out of Najee Harris's hands. So I really do like Najee Harris. I think you can fly solo with Najee Harris without Big Ben. Of course, Big Ben has the floor, just given the QB position. But I expect Najee Harris to really have a good game. The Steelers run the ball 37% of the time. Which, like you said, they were passing the ball a lot in that second half. So 37% doesn't seem like that much. But with the amount of volume that Najee Harris is getting, I think this game he breaks out. These last 3 games have just kind of been, steady pace. But this is where I really think he can shine, especially, under the lights on Thursday night.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned Benny Snell not really taking attempts from Harris, and it's true. I mean, he barely got to plural attempts last week. He got 2, and he may get 1, or he may
Right.
get a few more since it's Thursday night, short week. But they love to just feed the rock to Harris, and everybody else watches from that running back group. But again, Najee Harris, you mentioned all the touches, only 3.4 yards per carry last week, only 3.6 yards per carry on the season. He's not efficient, but we do like that he catches passes, as you're talking about, and also just the volume of carries. So he's playable for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And then speaking of the pass catchers, you have Deonte Johnson, Claypool, and Ray Mccloud as the wide receiver options, or the top 3 wide receivers options. Deonte Johnson is definitely getting the bulk target share among those 3, averaging 7 to 9 targets per game, just under 10. He had the big game against the Ravens, 2 touchdowns, 100 yards plus, and he looked really good. So I think Deonte Johnson is a very safe play in that offense, especially in a cash game. But someone that I'm really interested in, specifically for GPPs, is Claypool. In these last 2 games, Claypool has had 2 receptions for 52 yards and just 3 receptions for 82 yards. And I just keep thinking back to MVS, Josh will like this, or Crash. MVS for the Packers versus this Vikings defense when he had a 75-yard touchdown and a really big day. And I think Claypool has that opportunity here as well. Deonte Johnson has the better matchup. However, Johnson and Claypool, they switch off between left and right where they're lining up. And that's where I want to attack this Vikings defense as well. So I think Claypool could be a really interesting GPP play. He has a big breakaway. He has a big catch, and that's definitely a possibility. Ray Mccloud, he was more involved when Claypool was out and hurt for a little bit. But since then, a very low target share, couple targets his way. I don't see him producing a whole lot. So, yeah, Deonte Johnson's safe play for me. Claypool, really interesting GPP play that I want to look at. And then, of course, Pat Freiermuth as well. According to PFF, Pat Freiermuth has a 39% tight end advantage here versus the Vikings. The Vikings are decent. They're 18th best among tight ends overall for defense. What's interesting, though, is Pat Freiermuth has the opportunity to surpass some of Heath Miller's rookie tight end stats, and that's got to be encouraging for him. He's looked really good. Last game against the Ravens, he only had 26 yards on 3 receptions, but in the last 6 games, he's scored 5 touchdowns, and he's getting about a quarter of the red zone targets. So that's my breakdown on the Steelers side. I think a lot of those guys are in play. You can play them without Big Ben. If you want to play safe, I don't dislike Big Ben. It's not a complete fade, but that's where I'm at. Andrew, what do you think?
Yeah, I like it. Deonte Johnson and Claypool are like the definition of a cash play and a GPP play. Johnson just dominating the targets like you're talking about. He had the 2 touchdowns, dropped a third last week. So he's definitely Ben's favorite receiver, playing great. Claypool, he's the big play waiting to happen. And Minnesota has given up some big plays, lots of touchdowns to receivers. That big one for MVS was on my mind as well. I'm glad you mentioned it. The thing is, he does seem to continue to be a little bit limited by that turf toe. Only played 63% of the snaps against Baltimore, and that's got to hurt his deep playability. So it's like usual.
Is Big Ben the big play quarterback anymore? Right?
He's not. Let's be honest. Can we be honest?
Yeah,
no, he's not.
Yeah, right.
So that's the other limitation.
Yeah.
But he could pay it off for sure if he hits a big one. And Mccloud, low targets with Claypool out there. James Washington right on the fringes.
Mm-hmm.
Don't need to go there, especially 5,000 on DraftKings is crazy for him. You talk about he's the double GPP, the level behind Claypool. Like if Claypool gets hurt and then Washington catches the bomb at like 2% ownership on DraftKings. But Freiermuth, steady. Love the talk of touchdowns. The Detroit tight ends got 2 touchdowns against them last week. We'll see if with Minnesota healthier defensively, if they do a better job there. But keep an eye on Freiermuth for sure. He's reasonably priced on both sides.
Absolutely. Well, Andrew, before we jump into the Viking side of the ball, we'd love to give a quick blurb here about how you can join us here at dfscoachtalk.com. You alluded to it earlier. We are crushing these single games, having consistent winners in our lineups. And you can check us out at dfscoachtalk.com. We have an assortment of membership options, 3-day pass, month-long, season-long, whatever fits your fancy and what you would like to do. But once you're in the Discord, you get access to all sports, NBA, NFL, MLB, PGA. We give out DraftKings clipboard, full FanDuel lineups, full Yahoo lineups as well. You can chat with us. You can chat with other members. It's just a fantastic community. And like I said, last night we were celebrating our NBA wins, Andrew, that you provided for those lineups. Sunday Night Football and Monday Night Football, we were celebrating our winners as well. So, it's just a great time to join. We're really getting into a hot streak with NBA and NFL. It's a great time to join. So, Andrew, you got anything else to add?
No, well said. Yeah, I love this part of the NFL season with teams ramping up for the playoffs and everything we've gotten to see throughout the season. Feel stronger and stronger about the matchups and the breakdown. So let's keep it rolling here. Transition to the Minnesota side. And you were talking about potentially being a close battle, the close games last week that these teams had. How about Minnesota for the season? They've had 3 overtime games. They've only had 1 game all season decided by more than 8 points. So it's just close down to the wire usually with this group.
Yeah.
So that's why, I see it being a pretty balanced slate in terms of, how I want to build these squads, especially on DraftKings. But let's talk about Minnesota's matchups here. I think with Adam Thielen out, that's the big news here for Minnesota because he has 10 receiving touchdowns on the season. And with him being out, that opens up a lot. We saw Justin Jefferson just go off against Detroit. 14 targets, 11 for 182 and a score. And, Thielen, he got hurt early in that game. So it was just Jefferson all day long, every direction, short passes, long passes. They just got into his hands. And then your man, KJ Osborne, he stepped up. And here's a perfect example of the impact that a guy like Thielen being out can have. In the 5 games before last week, Osborne was averaging 2.4 targets per game. Probably because, Omaha Joe wasn't doing podcasts about him and pumping him up. But Thielen's out now. And in that game against Detroit, he had 7 targets.
Yep.
So, more than double the targets with Thielen out. He had 4 for 47 and a score. And he's real nice price on both sites. 5,600 on DraftKings. That's nice. For a second receiver, it's usually above 6,000 and only 8,000 on FanDuel. Again, usually more like 9 or 10,000 for that second receiver. So he's in play on both sites. Jefferson does have the best matchup on paper, according to Pro Football Focus. And again, we'll have to check the injury news here. This is Wednesday night. So we're not sure if Joe Hayden's going to be out again. But if he is, then you can bump up Jefferson even more. I just don't know if I can build a lineup without Jefferson. What do you think about that, Omaha Joe?
I was going to say, can you bump up Jefferson even more? Because, I mean, I can't talk any more good things about him because really, I don't know how you build a lineup without him. I agree with you there. Jefferson is absolutely going to have a field day. Or just for pure volume and pure talent with Thielen being out, absolutely. I'll give a quick blurb on KJ Osborne. The reason that I was on him in the past, around week 3, was the week before they went to him as a rookie wide receiver on like a critical 4th down situation in the 4th quarter. That next week, he followed up with the first touchdown of the game for about 50 yards. So he has a really good trust with Kirk Cousins. You just have so many weapons out there between Thielen, Jefferson, Dalvin Cook, Tyler Conklin, that's where his targets were going down, 2.4, like you said. But I mean, the trust is there between him and Kirk Cousins. And that's why I think his target share really went up after Thielen went out. And I expect nothing less in this game. I do not think it was a fluke that he had that amount of targets last game with Thielen being out, just because of the chemistry that he's built up over the season, via eye test and just overall them going to him in critical situations. So, yeah, absolutely. I love Jefferson, love KJ Osborne. They're definitely going to be in my lineups.
Okay, let's talk about the rest of the pass catchers while we're here, and then we'll get to the big running back news. So Dede Westbrook was next with 31 snaps last week, only had 2 targets. He did get 1 target down the field, but his 1 catch was for a loss of 2. And, Kirk actually looked right past him on one of the plays where Westbrook was wide open 8 to 10 yards down the field, and he just pumped it downfield to Jefferson again. So he's really that like 4th option when he's out there, not looking for much from him.
Yeah.
Dan Chisena was out there for a few snaps, did not get targeted. He's that 4th receiver, not expecting anything from him. But with the tight ends, you definitely can look at Tyler Conklin. 9 targets last week, 7 catches for 56, almost had a touchdown. It was ruled a touchdown, and then on review, they saw that the second foot went out of bounds. And I mentioned him because, again, without Thielen's 10 touchdowns out there, you got to get it in the box somehow. And Cousins has shown an affinity for Conklin. So,
yeah,
6,200 DraftKings, 8,500 FanDuel, definitely in my player pool. Chris Herndon is the backup there. Minimum price on DraftKings, only 3 catches on the season. So probably not going to venture down in that direction. Any interest in Conklin?
Yeah, I like Conklin just the same, especially his matchup against Joe Schobert for the Steelers. He's only had 1 forced fumble this year. He was supposed to be a really top linebacker, but he just hasn't shown it so far. He hasn't eclipsed 10 tackles in a game. He has had a couple games with 3 tackles, 2 tackles. And so I just like the matchup for Conklin, and I actually think he benefits the second most from Adam Thielen being out. And he had 9 targets last week against the Lions. It's a good matchup against the Steelers in the tight end spot. And between the 10-yard line and the touchdown, the Vikings throw a lot, which you wouldn't expect, but they've just not been efficient. So with a big target like Conklin, Thielen being out, yeah, I like Conklin, and I like the pass game here for the Vikings.
All right, well, let's talk about the remaining area of this slate, that running back group for Minnesota. And looks like Dalvin Cook is probably going to be out. We've got him officially questionable. He did get in some limited work in practice, but it doesn't seem too promising for him to get out there. Again, this Wednesday night, so we'll see tomorrow. But let's break this down, assuming he's out. We've got Madison at 9,800 on DraftKings. Got the monster workload against Detroit, 22 carries, 3 catches. And we know that Minnesota loves to have a featured running back. So I'm thinking Madison will get a bunch of touches again and be the guy. So he's playable for me here. Slightly above average matchup. Pittsburgh, 11th most friendly to running backs in terms of fantasy points for the season. 27th in yards allowed. So we'll see. The question is, if you go heavy with the receivers on both sides, do you have enough salary left for him? He's sort of like on the fence for me.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts there?
Yeah, I feel the same way because of his price tag. I mean, he has to score a touchdown to really pay that off, or at least that's how I envision it. Like I said, this is hard to believe, but the Vikings have the second fewest rushing touchdowns on the year. The only worse is the Texans, and you have a running back like Dalvin Cook. So it's absolutely surprising that they have been rushing it more for touchdowns. They just haven't been productive under the 10. Their old line hasn't blocked well. And on the opposing side for the Steelers, you have TJ Watt, arguably the most dominant player. Talks of MVP, would be, one of the few defensive players to win an MVP. At least on the Steelers blogs, they're hyping him up in that way. So yeah, it's just the volume is going to be there for Madison because they use the bell cow back. The back running back is Keenan Nwangwu, an Iowa State alum. So I like him for special teams. Unfortunately, that's not going to garner us any points. So I'm with you. It stinks because Madison's going to get a lot of volume, but I actually think I'm probably off of the Vikings running game. I'd rather look to the pass catchers, and I think that's going to be pretty different than the field as a whole, and that might be the leverage play.
Yeah, and the other thing here to look at is recently Pittsburgh has not been good against the run. We saw what Mixon did to them, but again, they've been injured. And so we got to find out tomorrow if Buggs, the nose tackle, is back in. Yeah, that could make it a lot tougher on Madison. And then Nwangwu, I do want to follow up there. I mean, he's speedy, but only 2 carries, 2 catches last week. So GPP play. And then CJ Ham, I want to mention this for fun because he had a catch for 19 yards. It was this play that I thought was kind of unique. I want to see if you've ever seen it before, Joe. It was I formation, and Ham was the fullback. They faked the handoff to Madison, so play action, and they threw it to the fullback up the seam. So they faked the run to Madison, and Ham ran up the middle of the field and caught a 19-yard pass. I thought it was a nifty little play.
Yeah,
and I just don't remember seeing that very often, if at all. So
I couldn't point to another time where I saw that type of play, but I mean it worked. The fullback has been a declining position in NFL, and I think CJ Ham has the opportunity to revive that. I think the fullback position could be getting used more, but that's just the trend of the NFL.
Yeah, he does have 12 receptions on the season, so if he happens to get in, look out for a GPP.
Yeah,
but
that'd be nifty.
Yeah, certain teams try to keep that fullback involved. Belichick does it some with the Patriots.
Yep.
Bit of a dying breed, though.
Bit of a dying breed. But like you said, I'll give a second shout out to the Iowa State running back, Nwangwu. You say he had 2 carries last week. Not a lot in the game, but he's had 2 return touchdowns this year. And he has only played half the year. He was injured for the first part of it. So that's pretty exciting from an Iowa State fan. But Andrew, we're talking all about the other players for the Vikings. At the helm, Kirk Cousins. What's your opinion there, knowing about everything else we've discussed?
Oh, we have to talk about him? Yeah, I guess that would make sense. We should probably talk about the quarterbacks on both sides. So Cousins, yeah, he's sort of on the fence for me as well, because I really want to get Jefferson and Deonte Johnson out there. And so it's just a matter of game scripting it. You got to game script it, especially on FanDuel where you only get 5 slots.
Yeah.
Feel free to leave money on the table. Don't have to go both quarterbacks or even one. Yeah, he's playable for me. The most expensive guy on FanDuel. I'm just not sure. I'm going to keep playing with it.
Yeah, absolutely. I found a pretty funny tweet that I think sums up Kirk Cousins in a nutshell, and it was stats love Kirk Cousins, but wins do not. Because he looks like a good quarterback on paper. He's thrown 25 touchdowns, 3 interceptions on the year. You're like, wow, this guy's an absolute stud. But yeah, he just he leaves you wanting more. And for a Vikings fan, that's a win. So yeah, I'm with you. I'm not too thrilled on Kirk Cousins. I think it makes more sense to pair him up because I like Justin Jefferson so much, rather than a Big Ben. If I had to go a Big Ben Johnson stack versus a Kirk Cousins Jefferson stack, I'll be on the Kirk Cousins Jefferson side of that fence. But yeah, both QBs are kind of in the same spot for me.
Yeah, it's a good point. I like that. And again, I just want to follow up on the game scripting idea because last week, they were trailing for most of the second, third, and fourth quarters, and he threw it 40 times, 340 passing yards. So he put up really good numbers. But if they're ahead, if Madison does get a touchdown early, I don't think he's going to throw it 40 times. And I don't think he's going to have a stealing game. But no matter what, Jefferson's going to get those targets and those catches. So that's why I think Jefferson is playable without him. But I think I'm with you that I would probably go the Cousins Jefferson stack over the Ben Johnson stack if I could only have one.
Yeah, no, it's a lot it's really a lot to think about. It's kind of a weird. Normally you have one QB. Normally we talk about one QB on the Thursday night slate that we're like, oh yeah, this is the guy. This is who I like more. And it's kind of on both sides. We're like, like you said, it's about the game script. Not too thrilled on either one, but it's like you want to play one. So, we'll see. We'll see.
All right. Is there a chance we're going to fill a kicker into one of our lineups?
Oh, are we not doing a separate podcast on the kickers this week?
Well, I guess we can just mesh them together here this time.
All right, this time. Between Boswell and Joseph, I would probably say I like Boswell more. I would say both have been fairly consistent. Joseph has missed maybe a little more on some extra points and field goals, but Boswell's been really consistent. They trust Boswell a lot. Not to say they don't trust Joseph, but in a game script, I think the Steelers are going to be looking at a couple longer field goals. It's that they don't have those big plays as short moving the chains up. I can see a couple times they get stopped. You're sitting at a 40, 45-yard field goal. So that's why I'm probably going to favor Boswell on this one. But I don't think either of them are going to really make it into my lineup.
Okay. All right. Yeah, I give a slight edge to Joseph. Boswell does have the slightly better numbers. It's just some, a little instinct I have at home. I do favor Minnesota a little bit in this game, so possibly more opportunities to score. But that's okay because, we usually are pretty aligned on our core plays. Then the kickers, we haven't always been on the same one, but it's turned out fine.
Yeah, right. We've been winning the last 3 weeks. And like you said, we're always on different kickers, but we're always lined up on the core plays. And that's what matters.
Well, right, yeah, because sometimes the kicker doesn't really come into play, and he doesn't shift the entire slate. No. It can happen.
It's a good sign that we don't like the same kicker, Andrew.
That is. You're right. I'm glad we don't. All right, well, there's the breakdown for you, everybody. Hope you enjoyed that. Jump in with us at dfscoachdoc.com if you want those final lineups. Full lineups on FanDuel and Yahoo. You just go plug them in. Cash lineups, GPP. Then the core lineups on DraftKings for the cash approach and the GPP. We'll have you ready. Love to have you. dfscoachtalk.com to join us. Any questions, look us up on Twitter at dfscoachtalk. And then make sure to tune into Hoops tomorrow. We'll continue 7-day-a-week podcast there. And we'll have main slate football this weekend, showdown primetime games. Joe, any other final thoughts?
Yeah, I'll put this teaser out there. Circle this one on the calendar. NBA Sunday, you get me.
Oh, that's right.
For a full podcast, which is great. It doesn't work out with my schedule normally to record an NBA podcast, but this Sunday it does. And I get to give you the full breakdown. So it's great. Pencil that one in. It's a must watch.
No, put it in with marker and set it on your calendars, folks. This Sunday, tune in for Omaha Joe and Hoops. Looking forward to it.
Exactly.
All right, everybody. That'll do it for tonight. On behalf of Omaha Joe and the rest of the DFS Coach Talk team, I'm Andrew Hansen. We'll see you next time as we look to crush it in DFS.